It's crazy because I used to be one of those crazy cardio hit people, like an all or nothing mindset. This is not I'm without struggles. This is more of you have more power than you can ever imagine. And I hadn't realized that until recently. In terms of my own physical weight loss and toning and lifting, I never imagined myself to be able to do that.
What's going on, y'all? Hope you are well. Welcome back to a brand new episode of Dieting from the Inside Out, and it feels good to be back recording. I know we took a little bit of a 2 or 3 week hiatus from cranking out some new episodes for you, but we are back in full swing, and I'm really excited to drop today's episode because this is one of those episodes that you're going to go, oh shit, if they can do it, there's no reason I can't do it. Because my thing is this, there's one thing where I can come at you and teach you all the things, the secrets, the tactics, the strategies, and show you everything. But one of the kind of pieces of content that I get the most amount of feedback from you guys is when we have someone who is actually in the trenches with their life that's just like yours in giving their story, where you can hear things from their perspective and the way that they've solved their problems. And so I like to do that a lot because it's one of those things. Ed Milet even says that someone can only transfer to you that which they experience themselves. So I wanted to get a client of ours on the podcast. I've been wanting to do this for a long time. So this is a 3-way podcast between myself, Coach Grant, and our client, Jenn, because Jenn has a story that will literally make you go, holy shit, that's just like me. Wow. If she can do that, I can. And that's what I want this to be. I want this to be a story of hope for you. I want this to be one of those things where you be not just inspired, but you also can take away the tactics and mental strategies that Jenn has implemented to change her life, to execute on your situation and stop the struggle once and for all, and to get on the other side of the goals, to lose weight, keep it off, and feel so much better and be happy once, finally with everything that you're working with. So that's what we're going to get into on today's episode. Now, because with Jenn, you're going to hear a lot. Like one of the things I was talking with Coach Grant about before recording, on like what angle we wanted to kind of take this with this episode, Grant basically said, well, with Jenn, you can attack it from any angle possible because all she's had to overcome, whether it be physical problems and injuries or mental and emotional problems or life getting in the way or a crazy busy schedule or life just literally when it rains, it pours, but she still keeps getting up and moving forward and adjusting and making progress in chaos and mental wins and physical wins and the whole 9 yards. He's like, we could literally take this any way you wanted. And I go, well, let's do it. So that's what we're getting into on today's episode. I'm not going to get into all the secrets right now, but I can tell you that Jenn, her story, the tactics that she's going to share that she's been able to implement into her life, when I'm talking about anything and everything that could go wrong in your life has happened to her. We're talking about multiple surgeries. We're talking about inner game issues. We're talking about childhood issues around weight loss and diet culture and all the things, and dieting for years and struggling with all this stuff. Like at the end of the day, all the way across this, you can apply what Jenn is going to show you and share from her. Just going to tell her story. That's the beautiful thing, is she's just telling you how things have gone for her and what her situation was like and what's been most impactful for her along this journey. That's been able, that things that she's been able to do that have been able to make this stick for her. So she is able to keep moving forward with her goals and to be happy and confident and look amazing and feel amazing and just keep moving forward. Cause that's the goal. If we don't grow, we're dying. So you're going to get a lot out of this episode. But before we get into all the nuts and bolts, and all the goodies, big thank yous really quickly to the sponsors of the show. Sponsor number 1, Flex Pro Meals, because if you don't want to have to think about your food, the only way to do it is literally have it show up at your house cooked and ready to eat. No, in all seriousness, I know that's not always super practical for most people, but at the end of the day, having, for me at least with Flex Pro, having meals on deck in my fridge at all times. So when life does get crazy, does get busy, I'm in meetings, I'm running errands, traveling, whatever, they're right there ready to be popped in the microwave that are in line with my goals, high protein, calories dialed in, and they're made by a chef, so they taste really good. And the best part is they are cheaper than going through a fast food, like a drive-through, a fast food joint. So if that's your cup of tea and you find the food side of this struggling, or you're always like in gas stations or fast food joints, definitely give them a look. And if you use my code at checkout, Hamilton Trained, it'll save you 20% off. Actually, for the month of October, it's 40% off. So if you're listening to this during the month of October, it'll actually save you 40% off, which is pretty dope. FlexProMeals.com or hit the link below. Second sponsor is First Form. I don't think you can see it from my sweatshirt because this is like a black on black, but sponsor number 2 is First Form, because when it comes to supplements, they are not the end all be all. They are not They are not the thing that most people on the internet make supplements out to be, but they do have their time and their place if you are not getting what you need from food. If getting enough protein in is a struggle, if you're not getting enough micros in from like your vitamins and minerals, we need to get that taken care of. If you're always inflamed and your joints always hurt, we need some stuff for that. So if you're not getting what you need from food, that's what supplements are for. And the thing is, not all supplements are created equal. Too many people are just going on Amazon, finding what's cheapest and least shitty tasting, and they're hoping for the best, and it's no wonder they're not getting the results they want. So if that's kind of what's going on, you want to make sure what you're taking is the right stuff, or it's the quality that you deserve. If you're spending the money, you need to be getting quality. Definitely check out the link below, that First Forms link. There's some free shipping stuff going on right now. And if you have questions, just let me know. Otherwise, that is it for the sponsors. Let's get into the actual conversation with myself, Grant, and Jenn. I will get them over on the line, and I will see you in just a second. I know Grant was telling me about all the surgery stuff. That's just insane. And that's why I wanted, one of the many reasons I wanted to have you on here was because, like, when most people go through, like, let's just call it small things, let it like an ankle sprain or or Christmas, whatever, not like spinal surgery. Most people, that's when they sabotage them. That's when most people go, oh, I'm going to stop doing everything and throw any action I have to the wind. And then they, of course, sabotage and cause problems. But that didn't happen for you. You've been, we'll call it like tested or had all these life things happen, and you've just kept crushing to where like you're untouchable. So I'd love to hear more of your end of that.
Yeah. So, I've had, my husband and I counted together. We've actually determined I've had 9 surgeries overall in my lifetime. That's including, the tonsils. I've had a couple ankles. I donated a kidney back in 2010. It gets funny, like, haha, like kind of dark humor funny in a way, like how many surgeries can you rack up? But, I used to play soccer. I used to run a lot. And that's where I think the ankles and the knee came in, because I had some kind of weird cysts with the ankle and then the knee, the meniscus and everything. And then, so back in, I would say 2016 or so is like when I was running long distances. I don't know if you know about Maryland too much, but we have the Chesapeake Bay Bridge, which is like the biggest bridge in Maryland, blah, blah, blah. And I did, my last big run was like a 10K across that thing, which was pretty crazy. I do miss running, but then I don't at the same time, because it's like, I don't miss, the wear and tear on your body and all that. But yeah, after, I'd say 2016, when I was running, the lower back pain started, and I remember it just kind of stopped me in my tracks in the middle of one of my runs. Like, it felt like somebody was tugging down on my hips, and I'm like, this isn't ideal, because I had a lot of injuries before. And of course I didn't want to overreact. Right. So I'm like, okay, that's weird. But as I went on, it's kind of like a longer story of like seeing the different doctors, and like, so I'll spare everybody all of that. But long story short, I had, 2 lower L5, S1, I think it was like a bulging disc or herniated disc, and I was having sciatica from that. And basically they tried everything. They tried the cortisone shots, they tried a PT, they tried all sorts of things, and it ended up that they're like, you know what, we need to go in and like trim this thing a little bit so it's not pressing on your spinal cord. So I know I just did a huge jump in that so that was in March of 2019 that I got the first surgery. And then there was like, things still aren't really all that right. So I was still having issues, and I had stopped running at this point because the doctor was like, if you've got degenerative disc disease, osteoporosis, my mom's side of the family, terrible history of back issues. I mean, my mom had a lower lumbar fusion. My uncle has had a couple surgeries. So I'm not surprised at this point that, it's just wild how early it happened, I guess. So, you know, back to 2019 is they actually had to do a revision surgery in December of 2019 because I don't know, insert medical doctor jargon here. They had to do some working in there. And yeah, I mean, I think I didn't really have a chance to think about that all too much because then 2020, right, that the pandemic and everything started. And that's really, I mean, my back had kind of settled to a point where I wasn't having pain anymore. But my anxiety, you know, instead of being on my back, it was on COVID and what was going on there and feeling a little bit out of control, or a lot of it out of control. And that's actually when I started. I was like, you know what? I don't know anything about lifting weights. You know, I'm just gonna, you know, I remember sending my brother, like I had bought the Amazon, like little bundle of like the 2s,
Yep.
the 3s, the 5s. And I was so freaking proud of those. I was like, look at this. My brother's name is Jim. I said, look at this Jim. And he's over there lifting like, I don't know, like obscene amounts of weights. And I'm like showing him my little like pink and green weights. So I didn't really know what I was doing. But, you know, I think for 2020, you know, the COVID stuff kind of took a front seat in like trying to get my mental health right because, you know, my mom at the time, you know, she was in memory care. My mom had Alzheimer's. She actually passed away in 2021. So that had a lot to do with the anxiety as well, because I couldn't see her. So I'm like, I got to figure out how to use these weights. So I'm like looking at YouTube videos. I'm like, what's the right way to do this? And I kind of got along for a while there. I was, you know, and then I found Jordan Syatt and started following him. And yeah, I kind of did a self-teaching for a while there. But I think in terms of, you know, being somebody who's, you know, at that time I'd had 2 back surgeries, I wasn't even really thinking about it because the way the doctors made it seem, it's like, oh, we'll just go in there and just fix this. But you don't really think about the fact that your freaking spine, you know, you can't, you know, shit happens and sometimes it's just not great. But yeah, I think for those 2 surgeries, I think now is kind of the time, especially reflecting on, you know, my recent surgery. It's like, holy crap, you know, it's been 3 of those so far.
That's a big deal. So I'm curious because that's like most people listening to this again. I don't want to make it sound like I'm talking shit about people, but just the reality is most people will let like the smallest thing completely sabotage them. It's like their big toe hurts. So they're like, oh, fuck it. I'm just going to binge the whole weekend and get started over Monday. Or like, or we see people a lot who will be in recovery for like a surgery, but they want to hold off on doing anything. But it's like, bro, you have to eat for every day. Your mindset's getting worse by the day if we don't fix this. Like, the training piece is so small in the grand scheme of things, where there's still so much more you can do. And in spite of all the bullshit you've had to deal with physically, you've been able to keep everything in check. So for you, why didn't you follow the pattern that most people do and let this become an all or nothing thing for you?
You know, it has to do with, I'm a big, you know, I have anxiety and I'm a big control person. And there's a hell of a lot of things that are out of my control. Everybody's control, you know, like there's tons of things that we can't control. But for me, I think my mindset is like, this is one, I know that my mental health is going to suffer. And by the way, I have 4 cats. So if you hear them, I hope they can be edited out. Grant has seen them before. They haven't made any debuts, like they're sleeping, but a couple are fighting back there. So I apologize.
I have 3 dogs who think my mailman's a terrorist, so you're good.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have one orange cat who is just like, I don't know what it is about orange cats, but they're like the most.
They're dogs. They're dogs.
terrible.
They're straight up
Yes, they
assholes.
are.
Our orange ones.
They
is
definitely
an
are.
asshole.
Yeah, they are assholes. So for me, I think it's easy to say, right? Like, oh, this sucks. Like, I'm just gonna go like lay on the couch and kind of, wait until this thing goes away or whatever. But for me personally, that would be like one of the worst things I can do. Especially given, I was brought up kind of in a household where toxic diet culture ruled. My mom was very much, she believed all that, and it was kind of passed down to my sister and I. And once it actually started when I started running and kind of taking control of things and feeling more in control, because I was one of those people who were like, oh, keto, oh, wow, you can just lose this weight so easily and you don't have to worry about anything. It's just meat and cheese and then that's it. But it was, I think, the realization that if you don't, if you let these things sideline you, there's always something you can be doing, whether it's walking. Like right now, that's my thing. It's walking. And I've been trying to do like 10 minutes at a time when I can. When I can't, that's okay too. My body tells me no. But, from the aspect of like not feeling like doing it, I don't think I ever really feel like doing it, doing the work. I mean, there's some days where you go into like working out and you're like, yeah, it's going to be awesome. Especially when I get new workouts from Grant. I'm like, I can't wait to see how he's going to like terrorize me. And like, but it's that thought of how you're going to feel afterwards, that feeling, I've never, and I don't know that anybody has ever gone into a workout that they've like really haven't felt like doing and then felt even worse afterwards. I'd be, unless they hurt themselves, of course, or they, but like from a mentality standpoint, I think you go into it and you're like, you know what, this is for my own good. This is, I'm not doing it for anybody else. I'm doing it for myself. And if I know that it's going to make me feel better and I know my parameters of what I can and can't do, like obviously after back surgery, I couldn't do a whole, there was things that I couldn't do, but then there was things I could do. So I think that's the biggest thing. I think and I did that for a while too, because I actually weighed, after high school, I weighed like close to 190, I think, because just at high school, you going into college and everything. And I was very much that person. Like, I don't want to do any of the work, but I want the results. And then going through that toxic time or toxic diet culture and the Atkins and the keto and the anything you can name, it's like, no, that's not what does it. That's not what does it for you. That's like ways to get, and of course now, like, of course, I know calorie deficit is the way to go. But even if you're using those things as like tools to get to where you want to be, it's not what's going to do it for you. You have to put in the work and you have to commit to yourself, because you're your own, you have to be your own best friend, like your biggest cheerleader, because there's nobody else who's going to benefit from a workout but you, or even walking or whatever it is. So I think that is the main driver for me. Plus, like I said, like the anxiety and like feeling like if everything's out of control, like this is what I control, like I can do. And even recovering from this surgery, I'm like, okay, well, I'm anxious. What can I do? If I'm feeling up to it enough, okay, 10-minute walk on the treadmill. Let's see how we do. And I've been able to kind of get my stamina up a little bit. I think I walked a mile the other day. So it's like small steps, but at least it makes me feel like, and Grant and I have talked about this, like when I come back to lifting in full force, I'm going to be the best version of myself that I can be because I'm putting in this work now, even if it's just walking. And it's not really just walking, because walking's a really good form of exercise. So
you mentioned, if you saw me typing, I was taking notes because I wanted to bring this back up. You mentioned literally 5 things just now. I have 5 things that you're doing. I don't even know if you realize how profound these are. That if most people just took the principles of these 5 things that you just said you do, like, no one would struggle. Half of all the bullshit most people goes through would go away. Like you said, number one of the first things you said was you committed to yourself above all else, because no one else will. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's the thing is if you can't commit to yourself, nothing else is going to matter. So that was it. Number 2, you switched to, I shouldn't say you switched, you added in intrinsic goals. You said, no, I never do a workout and don't feel good. I don't feel better afterwards, having shown up for myself, versus like making it all about fat loss or whatever. You switched or added in intrinsic goals. The third thing was, you said, you're seeing what, no matter what little things you can still do. You said, I'm right now, if I can do squeeze in 10 minutes, I listen to my body if I can't, but if I can get 10 minutes in, I do. Versus most people go, if I can't get in an hour and a half long workout at the gym, fuck it. And then they'll go binge eat because they even throw everything else out the window. So that the concept of a little bit of something is better than a whole lot of nothing. You ran with that. You still audited, well, what's still in my control? Because you notice with anxiety, because I'm the same way, I struggle with anxiety. It not only will move the needle, the 1 or 2 things that you can do, but it also grounds us internally. You go, well, me laying on the couch doing nothing, eating my sorrows away is only going to make me feel worse. But those 10 minutes, it grounds me. So you still audited what's in your control. And then lastly, you're stacking up your wins, no matter how small, and you still recognize them as wins. When you're like, hey, I did a mile today and I only did half a mile the day before. And you're still honoring these as wins, versus most people should on themselves. They're like, well, I should be doing more. This sucks because I was doing this. And I swear, if people took the 5 things that I just said that you brought up and ran with them and the principles, no one would struggle.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I used to be one of those crazy cardio hit people, like oh my God, I have to run 2 miles after Thanksgiving dinner. I have to do that. And I think it wasn't until I started following Jordan and then I started working with Grant that all went out, went out the window, because I'm like, with given my physical, the state of my back, I guess you could say, like, I can't just sit here and do burpees all day, and those suck anyway. I mean, I guess they're good for some people, but that used to be me, like an all or nothing mindset. If I can't get, this much workout in, it doesn't matter. But it's like, I think the surgery and being taken, when you're taken away from the things that you can do, you realize, like, well, damn, that was really cool when I was able to do those things. And it's like, you don't take things for granted. And I think that I've read a lot of material about like the high impact workouts. And like I said, that used to be my go-to. And I was like, and this was before I started lifting. And I'm like, why am I not losing anything? Why am I not doing, and it wasn't until like, I started dabbling in the lifting and doing that actually changed. So, and I guess a little bit, from life perspective and seeing things and seeing how fast things can change, if you can just do 5 minutes, 10 minutes today, and then you gradually build up, that's fine. Because and Grant has been such an awesome like mentor and trainer and awesome person to work with, because he has really helped hammer it home to me, like, nobody's sitting here, going to judge you for however much, or like, if you can't do, that last 2 minutes of your walk because your body is hurting or whatever, that's okay. As long as you're showing up for yourself, as long as you're putting in the work, whether it be, the physical or like the physiological side of things, or
Yeah, physiological. Right? Yeah, you're good.
But yeah, but as long as you're doing something, then that's what counts. You don't have to conquer everything in a day, and that's not realistic anyway. Before I got injured, just looking at my year with Grant, my first year, I think it was May 2022 or May or June to 2023. And like, you don't see it when you're doing it. Like you don't, that's why you have to take the pictures. You have to take the measurements and everything, because it's not an overnight, like, here you go, here's your 5 pounds off because you did a workout. It just doesn't work like that. So, my mindset is on, okay, well, my goal is to get back into lifting, but what can I do right now in order to set myself up to be the best version? And, even when I got hurt, so I injured my, and I don't know if you were going to ask about this.
You're good. No, this is perfect. I love it.
I steal your thunder. Okay. All right, cool. I just don't want to feel like I'm
you're
rambling.
Good. This is beautiful.
I say that to Grant all the time in the looms. We actually say it to each other. We're like, I kind of feel like we're rambling, but yeah, so it was back in April of this past year. Like I had subluxed my shoulder back in my left one back in 2020. No, actually it was 2017. I realized it was 2017. I thought it was 2020, but then all this stuff happened. I did research and found it was actually a long time ago. I was doing skull crushers, and my shoulder, my same one, kind of did the boop, boop, like
been there, done that. It hurts.
And yeah, it was kind of like oh crap. Okay. I'm going to stop those, and I'm going to talk to Grant and see what happened. And basically once we realized that it was not a good idea for me to keep lifting, and there was a long path to get to that, but I was still, Grant said, we can still do lower body. There's nothing wrong with doing lower body as long as you are keeping, you're not involving things that are hurting, or if there's anything that is hurting, you can do that. So, from April up until the week before my surgery, I was doing lower body 4 times a week with some, I even threw in at the end there, I was like, I want to do some hammer curls, and I can do those without, so I was, I added them in. I did, because it just felt like for a mental, for a boost for your mental health, that you feel like, oh yeah, I still have that strength. And by the way, Grant, I can still do 20 pounds. So, and that was what I was at before I got hurt. So, I think with that said, if you're given a situation, you could look at it like, damn. And it's easy for me to say, right? I don't say this easily because this has taken a lot of work and a lot of self-reflection, a lot of diet culture, a lot of that. If you look at what you can do, I think this is one of the biggest lessons I've probably ever learned. If you look at what you do instead of what you can't do, that's going to set you up for a much better outcome, because, it took forever for us to figure out what my injury even was. We thought it was my shoulder for a while, and then, we realized it was my neck. But the entire time, I was still doing these lower body workouts to kind of keep emotions, anxiety, whatever else. I mean, work stuff, I got all that frustration out. So yeah, I think that's very, like I said, I think that's one of the most important lessons I've learned.
I love that. I love that so much. Grant, what from your perspective, from high level coaching, we'll just label it that. Why has Jenn been so successful? And let me just preface for the listeners context wise. So, and Jenn, you don't even know this. So right before this, Because like when I do these podcasts, I like to keep a balance of like mild structure, but very free flowing to let what's supposed to come through. Like I'm not married to a rigid whatever, but I just said, hey Grant, just remind me the synopsis, just like what way maybe I want to take this episode today. And he's like, well, basically Jenn's been untouchable and you can angle it any way you want, whether overcoming injury, inner work, stress, this, and he literally rattled off like 10 or 15 different like categories of struggle, and he goes, and Jenn basically just has overcome every single one. So whatever way he's like, and his exact word was, or his context or example he gave was, he said, think of just like a dartboard, and you just can blindly throw a dart and hit anywhere, and Jenn has a story around it, which is incredible, because this is why I want someone like you on the show, because it's one thing for Grant or I to say, here's why you can accomplish X, Y, Z, because of course we're the coaches, we're going to say that. But when it's someone who's in the trenches, that's just like the listeners, and they're like, oh, well, I guess my little broken finger is nothing in comparison to Jenn's like 18 spine surgeries or whatever, you know what I mean? So Grant, from your perspective, why has she been so successful?
Well, and I was going to say something too, and this really does kind of fit in with it, but the saying, whenever life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. Jenn, I mean, that is one thing that you've been very good at. It's, and that's not to say that there weren't struggles along the way, but, anytime life would throw something at you, be that something related, to the physical side of things, the mental side of things, whatever it might be, you were someone that was really willing to listen to like, hey, we could look at it from this, but what if we reframed it in our minds to this? And then just really running with that. And, I think a fun one that just, popped into my mind was, the backpack, right? Like, we were like, well, shit, we can't do, anything heavy. So what did we do? Well, we got a backpack and we loaded that with weight, and we were like, hey, you know what? Now I can do weighted squats and I don't even have to involve my shoulder at all. Yeah. And I mean, that was just the first example that popped into my mind, but you had a really, really, really good ability at being able to take something and then look at it from a different perspective, because, and you're probably sick of me saying this, but there's two sides to a coin, right? Every single situation, there is a positive and there is a negative. And I promise every single person listening to that, there is a positive, there is a negative. And ultimately at the end of the day, it's up to us to figure out which one we want to look at it from. And, I think that you always would look at it from the positive. You would always make the best of a situation. And I was also typing there too, to quote you, you have to put in the work and commit to yourself, and you did just that.
So, because here's what's funny, Jenn, is a lot of people say that. A lot of people, this is where like I always say, we need to look at our lives with the sound off. Like, I don't care what you say. I care about where your actions are at. And too many people have the sound on and their actions are shit. I see every day. It's one of the hardest things about this job is when we care and are more committed than the person. This is not necessarily even a client thing. It's just people in general. I talk to people every single day, hundreds and hundreds of people, if not thousands of people a year, on they want to change, they're committed, they're ready to do this. This is not even talking about paid coaching at all. Could be paid coaching. This could be just implementing the advice, whatever it is. And everyone says they're committed. Everyone says, I want this. Everyone says, if I don't do this, XYZ negative outcome is going to happen. But if we put a percentage to the amount of people who actually change their actions, it is minuscule, because it's just people, right? So that's why at the end of the day, the fact that you don't just say you're committed, you show up in every form possible that you are.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, it's been quite the journey to get to this mindset. And, the way I figure it too is the fact that, being on the podcast and having people see it, or, I have nieces, nephews, I want to be a good role model for them and show them, bad stuff happens sometimes in life. It's not to your schedule, it's not to your liking. But it's, it makes you such a bigger, you feel like you've overcome something when you can bounce back from that sort of stuff. When you can say like, oh man, I broke my pinky or broke my finger, but I was still able to get in, like leg day or whatever, just finding what you can do versus, because I think today with how the world is, I think everybody thinks of things sometimes in a doom and gloom, because I think that's how they feel. And, personally, that's, again, where some of my control was coming from. I'm like, damn it, if all of this is out of my control, I'm taking this magical thing that's going to keep me, not only mentally well, but physically well, and I'm going to control it, because I'll tell you, it's crazy. But yeah, I think there is, it's not easy to get in. I think the idea of losing weight or the idea of working out and getting toned is like, it's great. But I think a lot of times people might get caught up in how long it takes. And honestly, I might have been, I was impatient when I first started working with Grant. Injuries aside, I was just like, okay, what am I doing wrong, kind of a thing? Because like I said, I joined you guys because I had watched, and this is kind of a little aside, but I had watched you, Jared, for a while. I'd watched your Instagrams and everything, and I'm like, I like him and I want to see. Then finally, I just took a chance and made an appointment to have a call with you. And kind of came all down to like, okay, well, do you want to do it or do you not want to do it? And I'm thinking, okay, this is the time to kind of bet on myself. So I can say for anybody who's watching this is not just an overnight thing. When Grant and I started, I was actually a little bit more, which made me feel good. I knew a little bit more from my self-teaching that I don't know how I taught myself, but when we started doing our weight training and everything. But it definitely was like when you first do, you put in the first few weeks and you do your progress pictures and you're looking at them, and it's in my nature to always see the negative first. And that's another thing that Grant and I have been working on. Cause like the first thing I think I mentioned to him in the first few sets, I'm like the abdominal area is like the first thing that you usually go for. And, thinking of it from an aspect of like what Grant said, okay, well, I'll give you $1,000 for every change you can see in your body, and looking at it from that perspective.
I think you made like $10,000, right?
And from there, you
I
owe
do
me a
owe you a lot of money.
You owe me a lot of money, But yeah, I mean, thinking it's just like from like mindset shifts. It's really wild how much, if you just take a mindset, like even if it's way different than what you think and you're uncomfortable with, like be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's so like, it can sound kind of, whatever, but it's true. Going out of your comfort zone, that's where you grow and you learn things, because I would have never thought to like, oh, of course I'm staring at this one part of myself because that's what I'm infatuated on, when like body, weight loss is like a whole body thing. It's not just not belly loss, it's body weight loss. So, like you look at the pictures like, oh, okay, like, yeah, I have toned up like in my jaw a little bit, and I have like my muscles, in my arms. So, I think that's like the majority, I think, of what this has been for me is a big mindset shift over the years. And, I'm still working on it, because it's not easy. It's not always, rose colored glasses, because I'm able to do 10 minutes on the treadmill, but I have to make sure that I'm doing the other things that I need to do, like journaling and that sort of thing to keep the mental side up as well.
Totally. I love that so much. So let me ask you this. So for you, like, because if we like zoom out and look, like you said, in the beginning you were impatient, you struggled with this stuff, but now you're like the picture perfect client who crushes on all levels. So like if we want to contrast that, that's crazy, right? So for you, when did it shift going from impatient as fuck to now you're preaching about how you got to get uncomfortable. You have to change your perspective and your mindset. And it's going to take years and years. It's going to take all this time. Like, and I agree with you. Again, because I say this shit all the time, but it hits different when someone in the trenches is saying it. But that was not you when you started. And again, I've always said, if you stay the same you and just get results, you're going to lose those results. You have to become a different person, which you have. But what made that shift for you?
I think it was a couple things, right? Like I had my relationship with food has, we've been working on that, because of the diet culture and past things. I think I'm with a lot of people. I had the wrong understanding of food and I was stuck in a rut. And I wasn't kind of losing anything. I wasn't gaining either, but, I think what changed is like over the first couple months when, I was working with Grant and I was still so unsure about this because I'm like, I'm doing this online. Like this is, I think I like this better. I think it's more flexible to do things online, but it was like a big gamble on myself. I think just to like put myself out there in the first place, because I think me a few years ago, I don't know. I think I probably would have been like, let other people do it. But I think those first few months and just seeing the progress and seeing like, okay, listening to Grant, okay, you're at 1,900 calories. Like, I think we should bump you up to 2,100, 2,200, whatever. And I'm like, what? Excuse me, Grant. Like, what are you saying right now? But in seeing, like I said, Jared, I had done a lot of watching your videos and and I just love the new, like this fresh perspective. That's just like, dude, it's not like that. Like the less calories you have does not equal your success in your, in the ability to lose weight. So bumped my calories up, which I enjoyed. I'm like, hell yeah. Like I actually, even though I was scared at first, I listened and was doing the exercise and everything. And then gradually like the scale started going down. We started looking at pictures and measurements were going down and everything. And that's when I was finding like, you know what, I just need to kind of, this is how the process should be. This is, I think, you didn't gain the weight overnight. Another cliche saying, but it's so true. You didn't gain the weight overnight. You're not going to lose it overnight. But so when I saw that, in terms of being, what's the word I'm looking for? Not liable, but responsible, I guess, in terms of being like, responsible for my part of the deal. Like going above those calories was uncomfortable because all I had known before that was, no, I had days a way long time ago when my mom and I were like 700 calories and under, that was a long time ago, but still those things, they stay in your mind and they're always back there, the old voices, and they still creep up. But the more that I kind of saw like, okay, you're incorporating more protein, you're getting those calories and you're not just, you're not filling your face with junk, but you can have like the occasional handful of M&Ms. I'll use the M&Ms example because I've been telling Grant I've been into peanut M&Ms a lot lately. But you can have that, and also the calorie, tracking your calories. And I know that can be kind of intimidating, but it really does give you a good, the more you do it, it's like any other skill. The more you do it, the better you get at it. The more you can kind of tell as you go on, like, like the other day, for example, I was making a smoothie. I'm like, oh yeah, this is about 3/4 cup of yogurt. I can kind of eyeball it. But I guess it's kind of like, not trying to be so in charge of, managing the body and science side of things, because you can't manage that. You can't control that, but also being in charge of like the activity and making sure you're eating enough calories or wherever your range is and that sort of thing.
That's amazing. Well, and the thing is, the reason, here's the cool thing. The reason I'm really glad that you talked about that is in the context that you did, like with everything. The reason though that worked though is because I always say inner work around this stuff, like fixing your relationship with food, and like you said, the diet culture bullshit, still like those thoughts never leave. But here's the thing, why it doesn't control you anymore and why you've been able to make these strides, especially from an inner game side, which now translates on the outer game. I love it. Normally around me, you see a dog tail like floating like a shark fin around my desk, but
that's Simba, and he's
there you go.
He's bad.
That's funny.
He's very bad. Anyway, so sorry. Go ahead, Jared.
No, you're good. You're good. But the reason that worked though is because I always say, and this is just for context for those listening, and you, if you for this as well, inner work around this stuff, I always say is two parts. It's new information and uncomfortable action. And then your brain finally sees the result of the uncomfortable action and chills the fuck out. So like like you said, most people are just unaware. They think like carbs are bad, or like you said, like, oh, I can't eat more than 700 calories a day because that's what me and mom did. Well, new information. That's what Grant's saying. Hey, we're going to raise your calories. Hey, you actually can have these peanut M&Ms or the peanut butter M&Ms as long as they're within your calories. They're not actually bad. That's the new information. Well, that's fine. That's all fine and dandy, but it gets where the rubber meets the road is now the action. Well, now we're raising the calories, or now you're eating the M&Ms, or now we're doing the thing that feels like death to your brain. But you said, okay, I'm responsible for my portion of this. I got to be coachable. And you did it. But it's still the uncomfortable action. It's like Will Smith says, if you can't get over the fear, you just show up scared. Right? So you have the new information. That's all fine and dandy. It's like, I can be zen as fuck at the bottom of the ladder, but now I got to face the fear and get up the thing. Now you did the thing, the uncomfortable action of eating more calories, of reverse dieting, eating the peanut M&Ms, whatever it may be. Your brain's freaking out, which is fine. It's allowed to freak out. It's like a child throwing a temper tantrum. And then all of a sudden, you lost body fat. You raised your calories, ate peanut M&Ms, and the scale dropped, and you're close to it better, and you lost inches. Your brain's going, what the living fuck? And then your brain goes, oh, I guess that shit's not dangerous after all. Okay, we're good. Now you have no problems with that. That's why it works, is because the more we avoid the thing we know we should do, the worse our situation gets. One of my top 3 favorite books of all time, I swear I bring it up on podcasts like this all the time. It's Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art. Not The Art of War, that's a different one. The War of Art. The entire book is about resistance is required. It's like the old saying, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure that you seek. So if you're scared to go to the gym, we got to go to the gym. If you're scared to eat more, we have to eat more. If you're afraid peanut M&Ms are going to store fat, we got to eat those motherfuckers. Whatever the thing is, us running from it is like running from a dog that thinks you're playing, and it can chase you longer than you can run from it. And that's why this has worked so well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's been, and Grant and I are still, before the injury and everything, and even now, I feel like there's still ways that I'm challenging myself that aren't, workout related. Like, we've talked a lot about anxiety. I just term it anxiety food because in my mind, my current diet culture, like French fries are bad. This is bad. This is bad. Can't have it, whatever. But what I'm working on is implementing those foods within my calories, or even sometimes outside of my calories, because it's worth it, or you just want to enjoy yourself because you deserve it. And seeing that eating those foods, it doesn't hurt you. Like you may have a little spike on the scale, but that's not because you gained 5 pounds overnight. That could be any, salt or, whatever. And I still, again, I struggle with the scale too. It's like an ongoing battle, but you have to, well, I've learned that in order to get myself into these situations where I'm going to be able to enjoy food while maintaining, my weight and everything, I've got to kind of put myself out there and be like, okay, yeah, I'll have the French fries. And it's, and it's interesting because having anxiety, I've done a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy where that's exposure therapy in a way too, like, exposing yourself to the thing that freaks you out. And, as uncomfortable as it is, it's worth it because, and it's not like I'll do this, you can do it overnight or anything, but once you realize and you tackle that first food, whatever it is, then you're kind of like, okay, next one I want to try is, I don't know, cheesecake or whatever. And just kind of like, and you don't have to eat the whole piece of cheesecake in one sitting, you can do it however you want to do it. But you just seeing that, and right now, like I'm kind of on a scale break just because, with surgery and all. And then I was getting, and this can probably be taken out of the podcast because I don't want to discourage people, but, I was getting frustrated with the scale a little bit. There's a lot of stress with work and everything, but like the thing has helped is just looking at myself like, okay, well, does anything fit differently? Do I feel, and the answer is no. I've told Grant that I'm doing everything. Even yesterday I stepped on the scale and I was like, it was the highest it's been in a minute. And I'm like, well, I just had surgery. So there's that. And that's a different mindset shift too, because it could definitely be like, oh my gosh, all my progress is ruined, which is a common thought for people, I think, if you see this, because you just want to see the scale go down. You don't ever want to see it go up because that equals, you did something wrong. Where in reality, another big thing that I've learned is like the body doesn't care what you think. The body's going to do whatever it wants to do. And, you can think you can outsmart science and outsmart the body, but it's not going to happen. So you just got to do the things that you know to do. That's kind of what I'm learning. I'm still learning that.
Well, and the thing is, I'm sure Grant can touch on this as well, since he's in the trenches with you every week with this stuff. Is it's okay to struggle and still be working through stuff. What's not okay is to be controlled by it. So, like for example, you've mentioned on several occasions, like you're still working on and struggling with still some stuff around certain foods or certain scale numbers. But the difference is it doesn't control you anymore. It's okay to still, like, things will flare up. Things will pop up. A thing that you thought you've been good through will pop up. All of us, right? Like there's even stuff like that I still struggle with that just pops up sometimes for me. And it's one of those things where it's okay to struggle with things, but it's not okay for it to control you. And I think that's where you're at, where like you're talking about, like, you're like, yeah, the scale bothered me. I didn't like how it spiked. But then I'm like, well, how are my clothes fitting? Oh, I did just have surgery. So it's totally normal for me, my body to retain about 10 pounds of water because of that. Oh, my pants are still fitting better. Like you may still may bother you, but like, it's not controlling you. Grant, would you touch on that too?
Yeah, well, and one of the things too that I want to just say as well is I think a lot of people, whenever they listen to these podcasts, sometimes they get the wrong impression that struggle just is not there for anyone. And I've actually had this week in particular, a lot of people say, I listen to this podcast, and it's like, how do I get that where no one ever struggles again? And that's not to say that it doesn't happen, but I think it's really important to highlight that struggles do still happen, right? I'm sure that a month from now, there will be something else, and that's okay. If I were to, and it would be cool too to show all the, tangibles and intangibles where, how much you've progressed in terms of your food relationships, your mentality, your emotional health, all these great things. And not to mention, how many pounds down, 16 pounds down, inches down, progress photos, all of these things. And it's okay that you still have struggle, right? That's okay. That's just a part of being human. Hell, I'm a coach. I do this for a freaking living professionally. Do you think that, I don't struggle to go to the gym and that I don't still have struggles around this? Everyone has struggles. So to all of the people listening to this, I don't want to ever give the wrong impression that you just flip this switch and then it's all just, smooth sailing forever. It's not to say that it doesn't get a hell of a lot easier over time, but struggles happen. I still struggle with certain things. And I think that I missed the question in that somewhere.
No, that was good. That was great. And I want to add to that is
gotcha.
Here's the other thing that I think people need to realize as well. When you end one struggle, you're trading it for a different one as well. Case in point, let's compare it not even in weight loss. Let's say you're poor, you make no money. Well, that's a big struggle. You know what happens when you make a lot of money? Now you have a lot of taxes. Well, now you have a different struggle. Well, then like one thing leads to another. Like let's say you have no home. You don't live in a home. You're homeless. Well, that's a struggle. Now I have a home. Oh, now I have to clean it. Now I have to pay the bills for said home. Like all this stuff. Like let's say someone's like, all right, I want to get my weight loss in check. Now we finally got our weight loss in check. Well, now we have to have levels of discipline to keep it there. Or now, so let's say someone never adjusts their relationship with food. Now we've got to struggle with that and work through that. And then we're at all times during life, we're just trading one struggle for another. It's almost like pick the problem that you want. Everything is hard. You know what I mean? So I think that at the end of the day, we don't want a struggle-free life. If that's what we're looking for, I think we're looking for the wrong things. We're just trading we're asking what struggles or what hard we want. It's like once you lose the weight, now you got to do the things that you did to keep it off, right? But at the end of the day, that's just how this game of being a human in anything works.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that was one of the things that I want to come across on this podcast as well, because I didn't want to come on here and be like, look at me. I did this.
Even though you did.
There's been, I did do that, but there is still so much that I'm, working on. And I would say in terms of struggles, like they suck and we don't want a struggle-free life, right? Because when you conquer that struggle, you can look back and say like, hell yeah, I had that struggle, but I conquered it, or I figured out a way to get, to work with it. Or, I feel like to be challenged a little bit or a lot of it, it's hard, but if you figure out, like with this injury, and learning that I needed like neck surgery, just having a way around it to kind of be like, you know what, I don't have to complete, because that was the first thought was like, how am I going to work out? And Grant's like, well, you've got legs.
Yeah.
Like you can do legs. So it's for anybody who is watching, this is not a, I'm without struggles. I am just breezing through life. No, it's not. This is more of a, like, you have more power than you can ever imagine that you do. And I hadn't realized that until recently. I think even, I would say the past couple of years, but especially after starting with Grant, the power that I have to, I've had life situations and everything like that, but like in terms of my own physical, weight loss and toning and, lifting and everything, I never imagined myself to be able to do that. And then when you're able to see those first few months of progress pictures and you're like, wow, okay, this, it's just so worth it. It really is.
Yeah. I love that. It's interesting on the subject of like the struggle and all this stuff. One of the things my mentor tells me, and we can apply this to anything in the world of achievement, whether it's business or relationship or fitness, weight loss, whatever, in the world of achievement, we're kind of firefighters. All we want to do is put out fires. Like in business, it's like, what fires do I got to put out today? Or in weight loss, it's like, all right, what fires do I have to put out today? The workout this and the nutrition this. Well, you know what happens when a firefighter doesn't have fires to fight? They go find more. They go find, I hit my mentor, we had a conversation recently. I'm like, hey man, I feel like something's wrong because I don't have any fires to put out. And I'm like, da, 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 da. And he goes, yeah, well, that's how the game's supposed to be, but you're a firefighter. So when firefighters don't have fires to fight, they go either make them or find them. So chill the fuck out. And a lot of times it's the same thing here is people who have been used to like all this stuff, we naturally want to go find problems. And are we going to have a struggle-free life? No, we're always going to have, because it's like with every new level comes a new devil. Right? Like if you think you're self-aware as fuck, there's another level of self-awareness, or these pattern recognition and all the things. So I think at the end of the day, we don't want to set our sights on a perfect and struggle-free life. We want to be able to just handle all of our struggles, which ironically makes things almost the closest to struggle-free we can get.
Yeah. That's a crazy part.
Let me ask you this. And And everyone's answer is different. I always like to ask it, especially with clients. Because money is always a weird subject with most people. I want to know for you, what made you put your money where your mouth is with this? Most people, because let me give some context. For most people, they're committed until it's time to put their money on the line. Or when it comes to even coaching, and it's like everything's great, until it's like, oh, fuck, it's about to get really serious when I swipe this card, right? That's when people question themselves the most. That's when they question everything. It's when fear is at the highest, because and it's also when sabotage kicks in the most, because by the swipe of a card, you're literally going to change the course of your life forever. And sabotage doesn't like that. That's where it's like really logical. Like, let me think about it. Let me try it one more time on my own. And all this is sabotage. So for you though, you committed. So for you, was there any hesitation, and what made you overcome that hesitation?
So yes, there was definitely hesitation, there is a price tag to this, but I think for me, and I think the past, like going back to 2017, not to get too much into but I lost my dad in 2017, and then my mom had the Alzheimer's, and working with that, and, COVID, and then, and I just came to a point, like on the day that you and I had the call, Jared, I'm like, when's the last time I did something for myself? When have I made a big purchase? Like, cause I'm not one of the, I'm not rich yet until this podcast goes. I had not, really done anything like this. It's like, I'm not really spending all this money on, and whoever does what, everybody's individual, right? But it was like, all of the things that were kind of in front of me, I think there is a price tag to it, but it's also, once you get those things and you're able to kind of progress and kind of overcome obstacles, that's priceless to me. So, I did hesitate a little bit. I did pull the trigger pretty fast after we had our call, but, I was kind of, because my anxiety shot up, and I'm like, well, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay for this? And, and I'm just kind of, but I took a minute, and then I thought of, the, years of COVID and everything, and how much I wanted to do something for myself and change and feel even more in control and have the guidance to help me get over these mental hurdles. Because you can do a lot of podcasts, you can read a lot of stuff, but there is something to be said about the one-on-one working that you get, that you kind of have these check-ins and you see what you're doing and what you can improve on, and you can talk about your anxiety and everything. And that's just, and when I think our renewal was in June or May, I had already told Grant, we had started talking about renewing like way before that. I'm like, just so you know, I'm going to renew, but this is how I'm going to pay. Because you discover that your business is not done. And obviously with me, mine is not done. So yeah, I don't think it's an easy decision for everybody, but for me, I think I would say it's just doing something for me. I think that's what my parents would want, would do something for yourself. It's been crazy for everybody. If you can swing it, go for it, because otherwise, for me, my same questions, problems, disordered eating in a way would just keep going. And I'm like, I didn't want that anymore. So.
So for you, it was the emotion hit, but then for you, it was very logical. Like you just said, in your head, you go, if I don't do this, all these bad things are going to continue to happen. And I don't want those to continue to happen.
Yeah. I was kind of was like, okay, Jen, yes, it's money, right? But you're putting into yourself, this is an investment in yourself. And again, might sound cliche, but it's the best money I've ever spent, hands down. well, I mean, I do have a house and everything.
Basic necessities are here, I guess, but it's fine.
But you put that aside, my basic necessities like food and stuff. But seriously, though, it really, I think now, going forward, it's like kind of like we might have to move some things around or whatever payment plan, but I'm going to make it work because this is what helps my mental health. This is where I want to go on my fitness journey. And a lot like how, famous athletes are, like when they get hurt, they just want to come back and just like make that comeback. That's where I'm kind of at. I'm like, okay, I had this setback, but come check me out in a year or whenever. That's kind of my mindset now. So, it's exciting to think about what's to come, and we'll see.
I love that so much. I always like to ask that question because I think number one, it resonates most with people. Because sometimes people, I can understand why it can be sticky. I'm the guy selling coaching, so of course I'm going to say I know how to handle every objection, right? But I think it can come across sometimes where it's just about the money, versus I think it's really important to hear from someone who's on the other side and is still in the trenches, your perspective. And I think it's really valuable. Like I even with my mentor I work with that I pay to this day still, people who are considering hiring him will come to me like, all right, Jared, real talk. Is it worth the money? And I'm like, and I will literally tell the exact same thing you just said. I'm like, yeah, I don't know where I would be here, and here without hiring my mentor. You know what I mean? And it's such a big deal. So, and here's the thing. I know you keep saying it's for you, and I would 1,000% agree, but the ramifications are way bigger than you though. I always say, every family has the one that comes into and changes the course of, like you mentioned a couple times that like you and your mom eating 700 calories a day and the diet culture dogma that's been gone through your family tree, because if your mom had it, guess what? Her mom had it. Then probably her mom had it. And that shit will guarantee get passed down to generation after generation, whether it be kids, whether it be nieces and nephews, whether it be whatever. And this is how bullshit gets passed down. But every family has the one that goes, not anymore. This shit stops with me. And it takes a hell of a lot of ownership, and it takes a hell of a lot of respect to go, you know what? This is stopping with me. I'm not letting my kids or my grandkids or my nieces and nephews or anyone who remotely looks up to me, I am not letting this get passed down to them. And I think it's important. And I think it's worth noting that this is for you, but this is making impacts in your family tree way bigger than you.
Oh, absolutely. And I have, my brother has 3 girls. The oldest is, I think she just turned 14 or 15. But I also have, my sister has 2 kids. They're older. So she has a 29-year-old. So, but still it's, especially for the girls or the young women, I'm not sure what to say like these days. Like, I don't want to, but the young ladies, it's very important to me that I have that kind of impact. Like, hey, that I can be someone that they can come talk to, or they can just see, Aunt Jen's not doing these crazy diets. Aunt Jen, or they call me Auntie Jen. Auntie Jen is, she just got surgery, but she's still doing X, Y, and Z, and just kind of being that, that's very important to me. And also like being a better wife, I am married, and, this affects my husband if I didn't do this kind of work for myself, it would negatively impact mental health. And then that impacts relationships and everything like that. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I want to be the best example I can be for my family, and my husband, my friends, it's just one step at a time and hope to get better,
I love it. I knew this was going to be a good one, having you on. I knew it. When I was telling Grant was like, hey, can we get Jenn on the podcast? And I go, yes. Like, couldn't even finish the sentence. Like, yes, 100%. I want Jenn on the show. So thank you so much. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and we got guest appearances from, I think, Nala and Simba, right?
Yeah.
Yes, that was Simba. Simba's the orange cat. Nala was
one that
the gray cat.
It's funny.
Yeah, Simba's very mischievous. He knocks over lamps and everything in the middle of the night. It's like having kids, but without, but yeah, no, I've been excited to do this with you guys, and I'm glad that we finally got to chat. And if there's ever in the future you want me to, if you want not my input, but I'm an open book, I'll say so.
Well, it'll be cool too here in a couple of months, whenever you're back doing exactly what you were beforehand, before surgery. It'll be cool to hear that too.
We'll do a round two, I
can't wait.
How'd you put it? Oh fuck, how did you word it? Like we could do version 2, like Jenn coming back or whatever. Or the rise of Jenn or some shit. I don't know.
I feel like we need a promotional video of
That's
that.
Right.
Maybe a Rocky theme.
Get somebody to.
There
yeah. I know. I am. That's kind of how I think of it, because I'll say that this is probably my biggest, even though it was an outpatient thing, and it's okay, just go and but it's a big.
It's spine surgery, damn.
The surgery was a big. Yeah. It's a big deal. So as much as I told myself that it wasn't, I think now that I'm on the other side, it's it is a big deal. So yeah, I can't wait to just get back into it. And yeah, but for right now, just kind of keeping it in bounds, making sure I'm wearing my collar. I don't even know where, it's right here. I thought my cat knocked it off, but, yeah, no, but it's been so much fun. I've really enjoyed being on here with you guys, and, I appreciate you both very much. You've been huge in all of this, so thank you very much.
We appreciate you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad about just everything, and so this is what it's about. So I love it. Thank you so much for doing this, Jenn. I know these things aren't the most fun to talk about, so I really, really appreciate both of you guys coming on here. But
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cool. I love it. Awesome, guys. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
Alrighty.
And we are back. Thank you so much for tuning in once again to today's episode of Dieting from the Inside Out. Because again, this is the epitome of outer work without inner work doesn't work, and why the inner game is the secret sauce. Just like with Jenn's situation, achieving everything that you could ever want in the world of fat loss, your happiness, and changing your life. Ultimately, that's what this is about. So if this episode resonated, please do me a favor and leave me a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this on, and be sure and share this with someone. I do this podcast for free, and I give you guys the best that I have. My only ask is for you to share this with someone. If this resonated with you and it hit home, either post a screenshot on your social media, share the link in your Facebook group, or just send it to a friend and say, yo, I think this might help you. Because at the end of the day, this is about getting this content that's helping and impacting people's lives to as many people's ears as possible. Now, let me just say this. If you resonate a lot with Jenn's story and you would like to have the kind of help with Jenn, maybe work with one of our coaches or even Coach Grant himself, if that's you and you're like, man, I resonate with that, I just don't know if I can do that on my own, or you would like to have literally the same service, the same coaching experience that Jenn had to get her to where she's at right now, you can apply for coaching right now and go to the front of the line by going to the link right now in the description of this episode. There's a special place in my heart for my podcast listeners, because it takes a special kind of person to listen to me rant into a mic for 60 minutes. So if you do apply for coaching, you go straight to the front of the line by going to the special link in the description here. Because with coaching, here's the thing. We don't just take anyone. There is it's kind of an interview process. We want to make sure that this is the right fit. And then assuming it could be the right fit, then we want to make sure that details are discussed and everyone's on the same page. And this is a really seamless thing, because that's the only way this works. So if this resonated and you're kind of interested and you're like, you know what, I think I would like to apply for coaching and get the help like Jenn got and never struggle, hit the link below and we'll see if it's a good fit or not, and then go from there. Otherwise, I appreciate you listening to the episode today and watching it. The other links are down there. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube, we have all the episodes on YouTube. If you aren't in my Facebook group, you'll want to join there. If you haven't gone through my free course, you'll want to go through that. I got so much shit in the description for you. It's unreal. But otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in. I love you, and I will talk to you next week.